Backstage.
All right, we're back. Damien and Stephanie from Backstage Vancouver. Who do we have here today?
Well, thanks very much. This is the social media edition of Backstage Vancouver with Stephanie Michelle Scott. And of course, here we have Krishan Randall, who you're going to want to check out on the blog itself.
Tell me, I'm really interested in a lot of these schools and how they operate. We've talked many a times with some of our interviewees, mostly off camera, about their experiences and sort of a value-based discussion as to, well, in the end, did they feel that what they were taught helped them to actually, get a job? And I'd be very interested on your take because, you were a student once, now you're there. Give me some idea. First of all, what you're trying to do a good job. You're trying to give good value, and maybe now you can look back at some of your teachers and go, yeah, that wasn't so easy. But give us an idea of, do you feel that it's easier or harder to give good value now?
Good value in terms of teaching?
Yeah, in terms of the curriculum and how does it actually get them out on the street and starting a career in this. I know a lot of them don't. They go out, there's either not enough work or whatever, they're too general, right? If you come out a generalist, sometimes it's not as easy to find work. They need an expert in this, that, and I know some of the students have told me they don't feel like they were an expert at any particular thing. How would you respond to that?
A lot of the people that I teach some of them want to have a career in the industry, but some of them don't quite know if they want to have a career yet. So I've taught evening classes at Full Focus Film School, and some of them are hobbyists. They want to try it out, they want to learn a little bit of everything, or at least learn a bit of shooting and editing and see how it goes.
Right.
And some of them want to do videos for their own job that they work at, and do videos as part of the job they work at. So they're not all necessarily looking for a career in film. And then with Frames Film Project, I teach youth with mental health and or substance misuse challenges. So they want to have self-expression through art. But as a great bonus, even if some of them weren't originally planning on being in film, I feel like sometimes my enthusiasm or something that they come across through the instruction makes them really want to be in film, and they are often quite successful at it afterwards.
Excellent.
Maybe not always right away, but they find something that they like and go from there. So I guess it's sort of like on a case by case basis, and not everyone's the same. But for those that really want to have a career in film, then the more they shoot and edit, and especially editing, like learn what footage works for them and what doesn't, just going back and forth between those two things over and over just helps them get better at both or either, or even if they find they want to get into directing or producing, just constantly shooting stories that matter to them and then editing them, which is, I guess, what I often teach the most often.
Right. Really
helps them learn how to tell their stories better, and it only takes a couple times of editing and realizing you don't have the right kind of footage to realize that you really have to plan your shots and make sure you have everything, and sometimes you only get one chance to do it.
Right. Give us a little history. Obviously, you said you went to Capilano. Briefly, give us a history of from then to now.
Well, I went to Capilano College, which is now Capilano University, in 2000, and then I worked as a production assistant for about a year and a half, and just learned how sets worked and got a sense of everything. Made a bit of money working crazy long hours, and took that money and bought camera and editing gear and started freelance shooting and editing. And at the same time, around that time, I also started a film contest that I ran for 5 years, where I started connecting with other people. And so I kind of went from working in the service industry for a year and a half to doing the independent route,
right.
Freelance shooting and editing, and then working with crews and starting to direct my own projects as well.
What was the contest called?
The 24-hour film contest, where people made films in a 24-hour period.
You're the man.
And yes, and so that was 4 years, and then the last year I did a public service announcement contest that was 48 hours,
right?
Where people had to make PSAs for real-life charities, Greenpeace, SPCA, and so on, places
Excellent.
like that. And so through that, I learned how to produce, and I connected with sort of my dream crew that I started working with. And then the final step to, well, it's never final, but another big step for me to become directing more and more was shooting auditions for casting directors and having great access and great support from the casting directors to really top-notch actors. So once I started having amazing crew from the contest and amazing cast from being in the audition room all the time, I started to surround myself with people that were way more experienced than me and better than me in a lot of areas, and I was lucky enough to learn from them and work with them and just improve my craft working with veterans or really high-end people.
Right.
And and then from then on I've been sort of directing, some shooting and editing here and there, but primarily directing, and lately starting to teach as well. And directing is my main goal, my main passion, but I also enjoy the shooting and editing and teaching mix. As long as I'm basically being creative and encouraging and inspiring others to be creative, then you stay in that bubble forever.
Oh my God.
So.
Well, what are you up to right now?
Well, at the moment, I'm actually today finishing up a short documentary on a canoe journey called Pulling Together, where several hundred First Nations people, mostly First Nations youth, travel with police and Navy and fisheries departments, other authority figures, and elders, learning about their cultural history and bridging cultural gaps, and sort of bonding with people that they might not otherwise bond with, and learn about the history of BC by canoeing hundreds of kilometers every summer.
Wow.
And so it's an amazing journey. I went out last summer with a few of my students, and originally the students were supposed to do a small sort of promo video, and then I got involved and started shooting and directing and editing the footage, and then it became something much bigger and hopefully more powerful. Seems to be more powerful than what it originally was planned
Now,
for.
when you say finished, what stage are you at, funding-wise and so on?
Well, it's funded by the Canoe Society themselves so far, and it's 8 minutes, but then I feel like there'll be a longer story that will emerge out of that. But right now, just finishing the 8-minute version.
Right, okay. And when do you think it'll be aired?
Well, it's going to have a screening on April 24th at the Roundhouse here in Vancouver, and that's the money's going towards the Canoe Society, and then the larger sort of premieres, festival premieres, we're going to submit to Imaginative and Vancouver Film Festival and other festivals and TV stations, and hopefully we'll have more screenings in the future in the festival context. And then I'm also writing a feature script, and for Frames Film Project, the part-time program I've been running for youth with mental health and addiction challenges, that just ran out of funding at the end of March. So I'm going to be looking for further funding to keep it going, and also a new team to keep it going. My team is in Montreal, South America, and on maternity leave, so I need to find a new team. But
right. How do people get a hold of you? Or do you have a place you hang out, or?
I work from home a lot and 20 other places.
Right. Have you got a website?
Basically, the best way to get in touch with me is KryshawnRandel.com.
Right.
KryshawnRandel.
Okay.
I have to spell it out because it's a very unconventional name. So all my contact info is on there. Most of my films are on there.
Yeah.
And I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all that.
We're all about sort of the community of independent here, and I'm really curious to know what do you think we as a community could do to strengthen the independent scene here in Vancouver and make it a worldwide entity? Well,
there's tremendous talent here. One of the big challenges here is funding, of course, money to keep things going. I've noticed that I was living in Toronto for a year, and it seemed like there was more funding for local projects than here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the heads of funding bodies are based in Toronto, and TV level and grants and things like that. But there's tremendous talent here, and I have been seeing quite a few successes, especially in the genre scene here. But most of them get their money from private investors or from Hollywood financing, or sometimes they're lucky and they get it from telefilm, or a combination of 2 or 3 of those things.
What about crowdfunding? Do you think that's the future?
Crowdfunding seems to work on a small to medium level.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it work on a high level. But I mean, a little bit of money goes a long way here. It's there's less financing for projects here than maybe Toronto or Montreal, but it's nobody seems to be able to stretch a dollar more creatively and more further than in Vancouver. I mean, it's just a genuinely supportive community here, and there's fantastic work being made here all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the number one thing is just quality and a distribution model that allows quality work to get out there as well. And those are other parts of the puzzle besides the funding. When something's being made, whether for it's a lot of money or no money at all, and then you have a producer, or I guess more accurately a distribution company or a distribution model that gets films out there in the right way, and they last more than a week in theaters, and maybe there's plenty of other platforms that they're seen at besides theaters, then that really gets good work out there. Because a lot of my favorite Canadian films, especially local films, don't get out as much as they could. But making really great work is the main thing. I'm a lot of my favorite kind of films to make are horror films and dark comedies, so it's been really satisfying seeing some local horror filmmakers do really, really well with their films. And I hope to see more of that. I mean, all kinds of films, but there has been inspiring stories. I usually hear about 5 or 6 a year, but I feel like the same is true in most places. It's a handful of great success stories, and then a lot of people struggling and hopefully getting their break one day.
Right. Now, because you know a lot about the industry, or sort of the process as a whole, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out? They're thinking of going to school. They're driven to this. Would you go right into school, or would you try and get a little bit of experience ahead of time? In today's digital world, it's not that expensive to sort of get something done. So, if you were starting again today with the knowledge that what path would you take?
Well, for myself, I mean, I did like running that film competition and meeting a whole bunch of amazing people to work with, and starting to make films on weekends with them at the same time that I was running an event. I don't think I needed to necessarily go to film school first to do that. But yeah, everybody's different. I mean, if people have a powerful, outgoing personality and they're full of initiative and drive, then they don't really need school at all. They can just go out and make films and grab a camera and edit and find a team to work with and just do it, and honestly, even if they're not outgoing, they could do things solo and learn everything in their basement, and especially if it's editing or visual effects, they can do stuff not totally solo, but more often solo than not solo. But film school, I mean, there are a lot of great programs out there to give people a taste, and also find people that are that have the same goals at the same time, and help each other get work, and also make mistakes privately and not make mistakes publicly, where they can grab a bunch of gear and try anything they want in a real nice comfort zone. And so there's lots of benefits for going to school as well. It depends on the personality and what their goals are. I used to be more blanket judging things, but now it really depends on the person, and there are some really good programs here. I think if you're spending like thousands and thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars for a program, you could spend that same amount of money on equipment and or a movie and do that. But there are very affordable programs here that you don't have to spend a lot of. You can get a taste of everything.
Yeah, like let's say they just want a little taste. They don't have to sign up for a great big program, do they? I mean, they could just whatever, something that the writing or camera work or editing, they could go take a mini course.
Yeah. They could do an evening course, or they could do a short program. I mean, if they really want to learn theory and history of cinema as well as the practical, then maybe they could spend a lot of time at a university, and that can be really good for certain kinds of outcomes and personalities. If they just want to make films and learn as quickly as they can, but still have some guidance, and also be able to really try things with other people's equipment. Maybe they don't have the money to buy their own equipment right away, then they could take a little program or a little evening course or something.
Or they want to try a variety of gear.
Yeah, or try a bunch of gear.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could also, gear is cheaper than ever now too, so it doesn't cost a lot to buy your own gear, or work with a friend or whatever. Yeah, I don't have one definitive answer for that. I used to, which was just do it, you know.
Yeah.
But there are, I mean, I've seen programs really help people out without taking a lot of their time and money at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen benefits of that, and I've tried to be part of that too. So I think there are some good programs out there. But if you're spending tons of money and taking tons of time doing stuff that you could take the same amount of money and buy lots of gear or make a couple of films on your own, then most of the time those kind of programs don't seem to work as well.
Right.